was sitting around the dinner table with my mother. I had some air miles, and I thought, what are we going to spend some air miles on? I'd like to do something with you. We thought we'd really like to go and see the Aurora and photograph it. My mum's a photographer. I like taking photographs of space, so we thought we'd go out and for the experience of our life. So we agreed that we would do this, and we would probably use the air miles to help us on our way. Didn't turn out that way. We used the air miles for something completely different, because it turns out you can't actually use air miles in a package deal without it being far more expensive. Anyway, I spoke to the tour operators and I explained the situation that, my mum was 73 and had 2 replacement knees and a replacement hip. And I was feeling the strain myself, so we didn't want anything too strenuous if it was at all possible. And he said, okay, well, it comes in 3 levels. You've got, very beginner, which is the one I've done, and I'm sure will be suited for you. And then you've got, obviously, the intermediate, where it's a little bit more of a heavy adventure, or you can go full whack and start climbing ice mountains and so on and so forth, and throwing yourself off cliffs. And I said, I think we'll stick with level 1, if that's all right. But if you can assure me that this is going to be okay for, my mum and myself to go on. Yes, I've done this myself. It's very, very easy. It's not a problem. Fantastic, I thought. Well, we land in Nabisco, and it's about -25. It's pretty cold. We get shuttled to our camp, our base, and we get issued with all these bodysuits, these real Arctic, serious duvets that you wear. And that's fine, and you can wear all your other layers underneath this thing as well. This thing is massive, so you're pretty much putting on a spacesuit, And we look on our guide, and the first activity that we have on our itinerary, it says Aurora Snow Trek. So we're thinking, okay, so we're going to go and see the Aurora on the first night, and we better load up with our cameras. And so we loaded up our rucksacks, put our cameras and tripods off the back of that, and started to get in your boiler suit, and you're wearing all your other clothes, and you get in your boiler suit on the inside, and within about 5 seconds, you're starting to overheat. It's so hot in this thing, so you have to instantly go and stand outside in your -20 plus, just to put this suit on, because it is so hot. Anyway, you get outside, it's snowing, it's blowing a little bit, but that's fine. You're wrapped up in this nice warm suit. Everything seems to be fine, and all of a sudden the man hands you a set of tennis rackets to put on your feet. And we're like, okay. He gives us a demonstration. He says, okay, well, listen, put these on your feet. Stay in my tracks. That's the easiest way. We're going to go for a 1 kilometre hike up a mountain in quite deep snow. I've looked at my mum. She's looked at me. Okay, no problem. And then he says, now, if you do feel like you're going to fall over, just fall over. It's nice, soft snow. It's not a problem, and get yourself back up again, and on we go. That's fine if you can bend your knees. Not so good for my mum, who, however, at this point had now got these tennis shoes on her feet and was doing as we said, but every so often the back would clip the other one, and as he said, just let yourself fall. Mum was letting herself fall. Almost every time she tripped over with these things, she'd hit the deck. So we're all standing as a group, that's fine, and come back and everyone helps to pick her up, and on we go. And we start climbing up this mountain. We're trekking, and it's now a blizzard. It's coming down on us quite heavy. We're trekking away, and Mum falls over a bit. Oh, let's come on, and up we go, and everyone sort of muscles in, and we get to, and the guide stops, and we're knackered by this stage. We're only a quarter of the way through it, and the guide stops, and he says, look at this Arctic hare burrow. you know, and he starts talking about the Arctic hare, and we're sitting down and we're, you know, and he says, right, up we go, and we're like, no, tell us a little bit more about this Arctic hare. Was it male? Was it female? You know, anything you can think of. Tell us about this Arctic hare just for a couple more seconds would be good. And it's freezing cold. I could see that Mum's struggling and I'm struggling, and I'm thinking, it's dark, it's night time. I mean, it was pretty much night time the whole time, to be honest, but it was night time to us. And I'm starting to doubt this trip. I'm starting to feeling a little bit guilty about dragging my mum along when we're out in this blizzard. So we carry on up this mountain. It's getting colder and colder. And when we left the cabin, and I'm all wrapped up, and I've got my balaclava on. And my mum comes out, and she's wearing her suit and everything, and she's got a scarf wrapped around her face. And I'm like, well, you know, I said, you got? She said, oh, you got a balaclava? And I said, well, yeah, yeah, kind of, yeah, yes. And she said, oh, I didn't have one. I haven't got one of those. Obviously, I had to take my balaclava off and hand it to my mum. So I've given her my balaclava, and now I've got my scarf wrapped around. But no matter how tight you put that scarf on, the first time you move your head or your neck or anything, it becomes loose. And now when you're out in, it was minus 31 with the wind chill. It was blowing a gale, and the snow was coming down. When that's hitting your face and all the moisture is now kind of half getting out, even your snot, you think your nose is blocked, and you sniff icicles down the back of your throat. You know, this is instant. This is, you've only been outside for 10 minutes, and your whole body's warm, but there's an area of your face that's just not covered and exposed. And now, obviously, with this moisture and this, it's just instantly turning to ice. And so everything in your whole face is just turning to icicles, everything around you. And it's becoming quite uncomfortable. And I was longing for my balaclava, to be honest. Anyway, we carry on up this mountain, and eventually we get to this top point. Mum almost collapses on a bench up there. She's just lying down, and instantly comes out the thermos flasks full of the lingonberry juice. And she's kind of being revived in the corner. And the guide says, he says, oh, he says, look at that. He says, I think the Aurora's starting. Well, I thought to myself, I didn't think to myself beforehand that nobody else seems to have bothered to bring their cameras with them. But I thought to myself, this is it. This is the moment I've been waiting for. This is part of the trip. And so I thought, right, okay, well, I'll get my camera and I'll set it up outside. Well, yeah, can't be that hard. But you can't do it with your mittens on. So, okay, well, I'll take my gloves off and I'll go into my, and instantly your fingertips are starting to burn, you know, and now you can't even unzip your rucksack, you know, and you're thinking, oh, this is actually really uncomfortable, and you're putting your hands underneath like this, and you're thinking, right, I've just got to dive into that rucksack and pull my camera out in a second, and so you dive in, and then you think, well, I haven't actually set the tripod up yet, so the camera goes back in the bag, and you try and set the tripod up, and you just plonk it down on the ground in front of you, and you're like, and he's like, oh, I couldn't see it. I couldn't see any Aurora. He just told me that this little green slither, maybe distant green, faint slither, smaller than a bit of dust on your lens. He said, was the Aurora starting? And I'm thinking, I hope I haven't come all this way. And that is the highlight of this trip. Anyway, I better get a photograph of it, because they've been saying, you know, I said, is it guaranteed that I'm going to see the Aurora? And everybody so far has said, well, you're never guaranteed to see the Aurora. It's either there or it isn't. You know what I mean? So you might be lucky and you might not. And, you know, no matter how many times you say, what's the best time of the year to see this? They all say, well, it all depends, really. So you're thinking that this is going to be your only opportunity to get a photograph of the Aurora. So I've set this tripod up, and I've got my camera out of my bag, and I've put it on there. And you can't think about things like focusing. You know, there was no way that I was going to look through that viewfinder and see if everything was okay. I couldn't bear it any longer. And so I just literally just pressed the camera, put my hands in. I did it about 5 times. I just took a shot of whatever out there. And then I thought, do you know what? Nobody else is doing this. I've had enough. I can't do this anymore. So I packed my camera away, put it back in the bag. Now my fingertips are, I think I've got frostbite. I think that they're actually going to like, melt off. I was waiting for them to just turn black. I'd heard it's the instant, and the pain was quite excessive. But I'm looking around and I'm seeing Mum kind of struggling. She's recovering a bit now, but I'm seeing everybody else just kind of standing around and not really, just nothing. No one's really doing anything. We're just kind of standing around at the top there. And the guy says, "Okay, let's go back." So we're okay. That sounds like a good plan, actually, because it's pretty nasty out here. So it's downhill all the way. So this is pretty good. So we're trekking in our snowshoes and we're coming down. And Mum's losing her footing a couple of times, and to start with, the groups has one. And so we're picking up and we're carrying on. But we're dropping back ever so slightly as the group starts to move forward. We're dropping back and we're going a bit slower just to kind of, help Mum along, and it's all going quite well. And I'm thinking, well, it's not a problem if we lose the group. It's only a kilometre down the mountain anyway, and we've got a massive snow track in front of us just to follow. It was pitch black. I think there was nothing really for the moon to even catch. It's just nothingness. You can see them they fade out, and everyone starts to fade out. Mum falls over a couple of times. I'm not calling the group back, so I pick her up myself. But it's getting harder because Mum couldn't bend her knees. And so it was like lifting this plank up like this every time, this stiff black board up, right, to get up, which was a lot heavier. And we're dropping a little bit further back. And as the blizzard's coming in, I'm noticing that the track's also disappearing. And I'm starting to get a little bit concerned now, and I'm starting to feel a little bit like Scott in the Antarctic, It's really coming down on us. We're kind of saying, just take your time. Everything's going to be okay. We'll make it. And just in the distance, I could see this little light. And I knew that was our base, our cabin. So it was like, well, it's a straight line to that. But, walking in snow that was at least this deep, and unless you get it dead right, you're not flattening it down. It's really hard to kind of get yourself along. And it was quite terrifying. And we got back to the cabin. Both of us were exhausted. We thought to ourselves, I'm actually starting to doubt this trip now and whether we're actually capable. If that's what it took to see a green slug in the sky, not even a slug, more like a little ghosty whisper. If it took that to go and see that, I don't know if we're up for this. So we thought that the best thing we can do is we're going to have a chat with the front desk and just ask them about the rest of the trip and see if we can continue, or if we are in fact going to have to just back out and just say, look, I know it's a little bit more adventurous than we expected, and slightly disappointingly, really. So we get back in the cabin and we go up to the reception and we say to her, listen, we're a bit concerned. Is there anyone we can speak to about the rest of the activities that are going off to reassure us that it's not kind of going to be like what we've just entailed? I mean, yeah, we are at the top of the world and we understand that, but I wasn't quite expecting it to be like this. This isn't the brochure. Holidays from hell, I'm thinking, and I'm feeling really bad because I've just dragged my mum 2 kilometres in literally the worst conditions you could ever imagine, to see nothing and to watch her at the top of a mountain being, resuscitated with a thermos flask of lindenberry juice, hot lindenberry juice, just sitting like this, and I thought, anyway. So we have a chat, and the lady says, "Well, tomorrow," she says, "the only activity you'll be doing is it's ice fishing. You're going to be experiencing ice fishing. It's a nice, gentle stroll down to the lakeside, and you'll have a little ice fish, and then we'll come back, and that's all good." And we're saying, yeah, and the photographing of the Aurora, the big finale. And she's like, "Well, that's fine because you'll just get shown, you'll get driven down to the cabin. You'll speak to the guide, and it's a gentle stroll through the woods, and everything will be okay." And we're like, "A gentle stroll through the woods? I mean, we've heard this before. The man said it was only a kilometre up the mountain to see the Aurora, but okay, we'll carry on because we're not going to back out just yet. We'll see how tomorrow goes." So tomorrow morning we wake up and everyone gets themselves ready, and again you step outside the door before putting your suit on. So you have to go from hot to cold really quickly. You get your suit on and you meet up with your man, and he's got this one husky pulling his provisions along on the sled, and we all go for this gentle stroll down to the lakeside. Lovely. Really lovely little town, lovely little amble, we're having a great time. And we come to this amazing lake. And the moment you step out onto this lake, 60-mile-an-hour winds are upon you. And they're like, the dog was almost the sled was sideways. The dog, all of his fur was just like poking out sideways like this. He's just standing there like this, And I'm thinking, I don't even like fishing. This is horrible. And we start moving out in the lake, and the further out we get, the more the winds are hitting you, and this is horrible. And your man drills a little hole in the lake there, and he says, "Does anybody want to go?" And I'm thinking, well, I haven't come around here to stand around, so, chuck us your little rod, and he gets your little stick, and I poke it through this little hole, and I've got my back to the wind, and I'm just sitting there in my suit and kneeling down and thinking, well, I hope I don't catch anything because I don't really want to be taking this off the hook either. And as I'm doing it, the hole's just freezing over, so you're giving it a little wig. It's almost like you're making wax candles out of ice. Every time you pull it out, it's got more and more ice on it, and eventually you pull out this tube of ice and you clean it off, and there's no fish down there. They're all well asleep. Nothing's happening down there at all. Right. And the wind is hitting me, and it's, they say to my mum, "Do you want to go?" And she's like, "You know what? I'm hiding behind this rock here, and I'll take photographs of all of you having a great time on your lake." So she's hiding behind the rock and taking photographs, and the rest of the group aren't that interested. It didn't seem either in the art of ice fishing in those kind of conditions. So we all kind of opted after about 20 minutes, I believe. It wasn't too much further. The best thing for us to do was to go back to the cabin and get pissed. Well, it was worded as a cup of tea, but it didn't end up that way. So we all go back, and again, me and Mum are kind of looking at each other now and going, "Jesus Christ, that's like 2 days of hell, really. I hope this gets better because this is really painful by now, and we're starting to doubt it." Anyway, I think it's the third day. We're only there for 4 days. So on the third day, it's the night is the Aurora night. About 9 o'clock, we're going to shuttle down and go to this cabin, have a little chat with your man, and then we're going to go off to the site. And so we, load up with our cameras and we go down there, and fantastic. We go into this really nice warm area, and we're speaking to Oliver Wright, fantastic photographer and guide, and he gives us a nice chat and reassures us that everything is going to be really fine, and if you need us to carry your cameras and your bags or anything, it's all good. Trust me, you'll love it. Everything's going to be fine. All right. And you felt trusted with Oliver. He was really good at what he was saying, and you didn't feel that it was going to be anything like the other nights. Again, everyone's kind of, if it was going to happen, right, it was such a crystal clear night anyway. if it was going to happen, it was going to be amazing. And we start this gentle stroll through the woods, and it's really still now, so we haven't got your Arctic winds, and we don't have that. We've still got the temperature, it's still about -27, but without that wind chill, to you know, it feels like 0, -1, -2. You're not actually not bothered by it at all. Boot camp over the last couple of days really, really worked, because now everything was fine. You know, you could function in this kind of like weather. And we go through the woods and we turn up at this viewpoint. It's about 10 o'clock at night. And as we turn up, Oliver, our guide, says, he says, it's just about to start. I can see it just about to start. Now, I'd heard this before. And I thought, oh, here we go, you know. But great. So I set my camera up, and Oliver comes along and he sets the right focus up on this camera, and he says, I think that's going to be about where you want it. Or in fact, he didn't say I think. He said, that's where you want it to be. That'll give you the best shot. Give it 10 seconds, bust on that. And off you go. And this green line had appeared across the sky, and I went, yeah, all right. And I took this photograph, and bam, on the screen appeared this kind of neon glow, and I could see that whatever shot I'd just taken there was just the most incredible thing I'd ever taken in my life. Forget what I was seeing live. The shot that I'd taken and excited me so much that I remember shouting out, look, I'm sorry, I'm going to swear, and just went, fucking hell. I mean, really, the words cannot describe how amazing this was. And then all of a sudden, the sky just started dancing and erupting. It was just the most, it was quite an emotional experience, to be honest, because no matter what you say, actually just seeing that spectacle happen in front of you kind of, it takes your breath away. To the point where your emotions are all over the place. I never ever expected to feel that way about anything. I still shiver now talking about it. This glows of green just firing off all over the place. And well, I mean, suddenly that the last 2 days left our mind. This display went on for 2 hours. We stopped taking photographs. We thought, you know what? I think we filled up 2 little memory cards full by this stage, and went, like, I'm all already out. Let's just stand here and watch it. And we stood there and we watched it for about another half an hour. And by that stage, we're just when we thought, actually, you know what? I think we've had enough tonight, to be honest. The whole thing just finished and just faded away, and we all went back. Truly the most incredible experience, I think, of my life. It didn't end there. I had to ride some huskies, had to get some sleds going, and have a ride with some huskies and really get it. And you get on these sleds. I mean, the most amazing dogs I've ever come across in my life, really. I saw them and I just lay down on the floor in front of them in the snow. And they come over to you, and they just lick the hell out of you. I maybe should have asked first, to be honest, but it just didn't occur to me, actually. I just thought I'd go and play with the dogs, who were incredible. I mean, completely iced up. Their faces were completely iced up after the first part of the run, which just amazed me as well, because they weren't phased by it. They were just. But you get in in the sled, and they start pulling you along. And the first thing you have to really watch out for when you're travelling along, I mean, you can't breathe anyway when they're going full pelt. You can't breathe, and it's very hard to see. You're just flying along at such a rate. But what you don't want to happen is for one of them to have a shit. Because that shit is just coming straight up and slapping you in the face. It's being kicked up by another 11 dogs in the pack most of the time when it comes on your face. So that was the worst part about that particular part. But again, incredible. Just the speed of those things was just amazing. It just amazed me. And on the last day, we decided that we would go and check out the ice hotel, which I have to say again was just the most incredible thing I think I've ever seen. I mean, mainly for the bar, got absolutely ratted in that bar afterwards in ice glasses. So just carved out of ice, and you just get another one. There was something really nice about having champagne in a nice glass. Um, anyway, that was my trip with my mum to the Aurora.